So good evening, everyone. I'm Joya Pursuti. I'm with the New Bedford Health Department, and I'm a program coordinator for a variety of substance abuse, misuse, substance use grants at the Health Department. And I'm also the coordinator for the Greater New Bedford Opioid Task Force. Stephanie Sloan, our health director, and also the co-chair of the Greater New Bedford Opioid Task Force, sends her regrets. She's not able to be here this evening, but she deeply aligns with this topic. It's of great concern to her. So I'd like to thank you all so much for joining us at this town hall event, our first town hall event, hopeful for having many more. And I would just like to extend my deepest appreciation to Fairhaven for hosting us in this beautiful space. Also, an enormous thank you to the Fairhaven TV team who made it possible to both record and live broadcast this event. So Derek, Eric, and Allison, give them a thumbs up, a little round of applause. Thank you so much. And the New Bedford Health Department is very excited to collaborate with numerous organizations countywide who also seek to address the opioid epidemic. So tonight's event is the result of a collaboration amongst partners, including, but by no means limited to, the Bristol County Regional Alliance, Fairhaven Community Outreach, the New Bedford Health Department, the Greater New Bedford Opioid Task Force, Achieve Greatness, and Voices for Awareness, among others, of course. And we have some of our founding members of the Bristol County Regional Alliance here tonight. Carl Alves, Executive Director of PACA. There he is. And then Reverend Lima of Interchurch Council. So, hooray! And we have representation, Carol from the DA's office, who's also a founding partner, along with South Coast Health. So I would like to now welcome Sergeant Bouvier and Sergeant Dan Dorgan to begin the event officially this evening. So thank you all very much.
And I want to thank everybody for being here at Fairhaven Town Hall tonight. Specifically, over the past at least 5 to 6 years and prior to the pandemic, Chief Myers has made it a priority for us to use harm reduction, address the opioid crisis in our community, and from there it's just taken off into areas that we never thought possible. But I wanted to thank Derek from Town Hall for all his effort, and Fairhaven TV, our town administrator Angie Lopes-Ellison for having this event, for allowing us to use this venue, which is a great place for us to spread out, plenty of room. There's plenty of food, enjoy yourself. This topic is very important. We have a lot of different perspectives, from law enforcement to families who have lost people, to people that have also, that are in recovery and can really shed some light on what might work and what might not work. So with that, I'm going to introduce Sergeant Dan Dorgan, who's also part of Fairhaven Community Outreach. He can explain a little bit more about the program. Thank you.
Thank you. Through working with Joya and the Opioid Task Force through IOPSL grant funding, we've been able to implement a 24/7 hotline at the Fairhaven Police Department where we are able to go out and address any type of issue with an overdose, with someone in need of speaking to someone, or recovery services, and it's staffed 24/7 by a member of Fairhaven Community Outreach. We're one of the only ones in the area that I know that are providing that type of service. And like I said, it's through the work that's been done to secure those funds. We're getting out to people within 24 to 48 hours of an overdose. Just the other day, talking to somebody who, felt like they were, facing a relapse, and just being able to talk to somebody. It's really been something that the people in our department enjoy. Going forward, I can tell you that the outlook of the department for outreach and for us to operate in the recovery space, it's only going to increase. We are committed, we're dedicated to taking this avenue to help people through any type of substance abuse, mental health crises. That is definitely something that our department wants to increase our efforts, definitely not going to go away anytime soon. I want to thank everybody for being here. Again, I know there's going to be a lot of good information, so I hope that you take it all in. And with that, I'll turn it over to Joya. She has a short video. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sergeants. We really appreciate you. They're such an incredible example of champions for the community, and it's been such a pleasure to work with them. So the next part of our program, we're going to watch a short video, and then we'll have our guest speakers present. All right, thank you.
Unresponsive at this time. ETA about 2 minutes. Anything further?
My name is Dominic Tierno. Since I graduated high school in 2014, I've had the great honor of directing a number of documentary films about drugs and drug addiction. Our mission is to revolutionize drug education by telling real-life stories that motivate young people to make one of the most important decisions of their life, and that's the decision to not use drugs. 2020 was the worst year for drug overdose deaths that we have ever seen. In the beginning of summer in 2020, I came across this article. A 14-year-old kid from a town I grew up in had died from what appeared to be a drug overdose. He's a smart, funny guy who, like many kids, was struggling with some anxiety issues and decided that he would turn to drugs to see if he could help himself with that. What happened was he went and bought this pill, this Oxycontin pill, from a guy he had known because he thought that pill might ease the pain of what he was going through mentally. Well, he didn't know it, but that Oxycontin pill wasn't a real Oxycontin pill. It was a fake pill. It looked just like the pill that he wanted to try, but instead of Oxycontin, it was made with fentanyl, a synthetic opioid known to be 50 to 100 times the strength of morphine. That one pill he took that night killed him almost instantly, and his mom found him dead in his bedroom the next morning. Before I can even finish that article, I'm scrolling through and I see another linked article. Not far away, around the same time, another 14-year-old dead from fentanyl. So then I go back to Google and I type in fentanyl deaths. I hit search, and then it all made sense. I saw another kid, and I saw high school students, college students, young adults, all recent, all over the country, all dead from fentanyl. And so I'm looking at that and I'm saying, these aren't just normal overdose deaths. These people think they're taking one drug and turns out they're being killed. Why have we not heard about this?
It's a drug 50 times more potent than heroin, and doctors say just touching it can send you to the emergency room. We're talking about the synthetic opioid fentanyl.
The first time I heard about fentanyl was my sister busting in my house being like, don't touch anything in his room, it's fentanyl. And I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, I have no idea what's going on right now. So most people haven't heard of this because We haven't been talking about it. Back in 2013, when it first started showing up, only about 3% of drug users were dying from it. Now we're looking at over 50% of drug deaths being attributed to fentanyl. If Alexander could have got a lesson, I wish he knew about fentanyl. I wish he understood that fentanyl poisoning is real and that every time you try something, you're playing with your life. It is pill roulette every time you try it. As a mom of a kid that was just trying to experiment, that's where it is. As a mom of a kid that died just wanting to experiment, I wish I could just shake you and tell you and make it real for you. But I don't know how to do that. I won't be there when you're faced with these decisions. I know that if he knew the effects of his passing, it would crush him. He never intended for me to find him on his bedroom floor. He never intended for his dad to administer CPR, trying to save his life while we were waiting for the paramedics. Even his 12-year-old sister wanted to run in there and try to help do CPR, but I held her back. Alex didn't intend for me to see him wheeled away on a stretcher and put into an ambulance. Alex had no intentions of me seeing him lying on a stainless steel table covered with a sheet with only his head showing. Alex had no intentions of me knowing what it felt like to kiss his face for the last time. The images that I'm left with of that day replay in my mind on a regular basis. Please do not put your family through this. And please, 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 I beg of you, learn about fentanyl now. Don't wait until your best friend has died, or a brother or your sister. Learn about it now so you can help your friends. You can tell them, you can warn them. You can be a very important part of saving lives.
This would be how much cocaine somebody would have to ingest to kill them. This is the approximate number of prescription pills one would have to ingest to kill them. This is the amount of heroin the average person would have to ingest to kill them. Fentanyl. You're gonna have to bring that camera up here real close to see it. This much fentanyl would kill you and I if we split it. They put fentanyl in cocaine. They put fentanyl in heroin. They put fentanyl, as we already know and talked about, into counterfeit pills. It's odorless, it's tasteless, you don't know it's there. And when you find out it's there, it's too late. You won't even know it. You'll be dead. 2,500 people would be killed by that amount of fentanyl. Does that sound like a drug to you? Does that sound more like a poison? I was a police officer for 31 years, and during my time in narcotics, I'd never heard of fentanyl. In homicide, I saw many, many tragic things. I saw people that were killed by shootings, stabbings, beatings. Nothing that I saw at that particular time would have ever prepared me to see Jessica. I was at work. I got a telephone call from my wife, Cherie. She was frantic, uncontrollable, screaming into the phone about Jessica. And I knew something had happened. Jessica lived with her boyfriend, Nicholas, and a stupid decision in which they ordered and had some cocaine delivered to them, to their house, resulted in them ingesting it. And my daughter at that particular time became forever 29 years of age. Jessica didn't want to die. She has a beautiful daughter, Alara, who is now with Cherie and I, and we are raising. And she had everything to live for. Jessica knew about fentanyl, but, from talking about this issue after she died with her friends. I discovered that Jessica had a friend that had even died a couple of weeks prior to her death. And Jessica had spoken to her friends about being afraid. Well, if you knew about it, why would you even risk it, sweetheart? You knew it. Why did you make that bad decision? Who knows? Those are things that you'll never answer. We're just trying to prevent it from happening to somebody else.
Dealers are using social media to show off what they've got, infiltrating feeds of ever younger teens curious about this flashy lifestyle. With more addicts and overdoses by the day, they've got drivers on demand delivering any drug to your door 24/7.
Social media app has changed the game when it comes to narcotics. Fentanyl's all over the place, and just massive amounts of it. And some of them are going to fall trap to that.
4 years ago, DEA in Arizona seized 0 fentanyl. This last year, we seized enough fentanyl to kill 70 million people. You're playing Russian roulette out there when you're taking these pills and you're buying this stuff off the street.
Social media has completely changed the landscape of the drug trade. Most people start by searching for what they think are prescription medications, and drug dealers respond saying that's what they have. But what you have to be careful about is what you're asking for and what you get can be two different things. And if you're buying this stuff from somebody online, their bottom line is they're just looking to make a quick buck. They don't have your best interest in mind. They'll tell you whatever you want to hear. Unless you're getting these drugs from your doctor or a licensed pharmacy in a bottle that has your name on it, you may as well assume these drugs are fake. You're not getting the real thing. Fentanyl's literally taken over the drug market. It's in everything. It's in meth, it's in cocaine. Obviously the counterfeit pills that are out there, we're starting to see it showing up now in marijuana. The people who make this stuff, who are putting the fentanyl in everything, they have one goal: to get you hooked. Fentanyl is highly, highly addictive. They're gonna trick you into thinking you're getting something you're not, to take you down that rabbit hole, to get you hooked on fentanyl and have you become an addict. Because to them, you're a customer, and you'll be a returning customer at that point. One of those times, you're gonna get enough fentanyl to kill you. Alex was in her bedroom at night, getting ready for bed. She went on social media in search of oxycodone. It wasn't hard for her to find a drug dealer, and she had what she thought was oxycodone delivered to our house. One pill had enough fentanyl to kill 5 people. My daughter took half of this pill and died instantly. In an instant, my life was changed forever. My last memory of my daughter is of her being wheeled out on a gurney. I saw my daughter brought into this world, and I saw her leave this world. I have 4 daughters and a beautiful wife. Every time we take a family picture, I don't see who's there, I see who's missing. It's an odd feeling to looking forward to dying, because you know that's when your heart will be made whole again. Alex would have never wanted this. Don't do it to your parents.
It's the end of the world at the palm of my hand. If you can't come with me, I'll understand.
Hi, I'm Andrea Thomas. I'm with Voices for Awareness and Facing Fentanyl. Facing Fentanyl is the home of the National Fentanyl Prevention and Awareness Day that we observe on August 21st each year, families across the country come together, like mine, families that have been impacted by fentanyl, and we bring education and awareness around the United States. The film that you saw today, those are some of my dear friends. There's about 7 more minutes left of that film, and I encourage you to go over to the resource tables and pick up one of the Dead on Arrival cards and share that film with your families or other people that are close to you. There's a QR code where you can access that. So the deadliest drug threat our nation has ever seen, as if old drugs weren't bad enough. These young people in this film were found in their homes where we believe that we're safe, in the rooms next to their parents, poisoned by fentanyl. They weren't in a seedy place, a dark alley, somewhere dangerous. They were in the safety of their home. These are common scenarios now that are too prevalent in the times that we live in. I'm a mom. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a law enforcement agent. I'm a mom. 5 years ago, I didn't know about fentanyl either. I received a phone call on June 11th at 7:21 in the morning, and it was my daughter's father, and he told me that our daughter was dead, that she had taken something that took her life. She'd taken a pill. Well, that doesn't even make sense. We've all taken a pill, right? I thought it was a lie. And I went into town. I was going to find my daughter and ask her why somebody would have made up a story like this. And, why. But in fact, it was true. When I got into town, I received clarification of what had happened, and my daughter was gone. Someone had given her a half of a pill that looked like a prescription, her prescription medication, and it took her life. Something so small. Can you even see this? That took my child's life, and many others, as you've heard in the film. So why is fentanyl different? I began to understand when I started learning about fentanyl that there was this perfect storm that occurred. We had a legal drug at one point, this overprescribing that people were becoming addicted to, right? A legal chain, legal substances. And then we cut down on that, right? We stopped this overprescribing, a great deal of the overprescribing. And the cartels took every advantage of that time by bringing these deceptive pills into our country and poisoning Americans by the hundreds of thousands. So it was first noticed in the form of these prescription-looking pills that mimicked other drugs, and then moved into other drugs that posed as heroin and cocaine. All pills, powders, and sprays that you find out there now today are made with fentanyl. Fentanyl and filler. You're not going to buy cocaine and find cocaine and fentanyl. You're going to find fentanyl and filler. These dangerous drugs the precursors come from China. Our Drug Enforcement Agency is very clear, explaining to us the chain of events, where this starts and how it comes into our country. These precursors are made in China. They're moved to narco-terrorists in Mexico. Pills are pressed there, drugs are made there, and then they're flooded into our country. It's safe to assume that every drug on the street now is made with fentanyl. In that film, they talked about 4 out of 10 pills being deadly. Administrator Milgram of the Drug Enforcement Administration came forward this last week and said, now you can expect 7 out of those 10 pills to be deadly. In my opinion, there's no safe dose of fentanyl anywhere. Your choice is either to be poisoned by just 2 milligrams like you saw in the film, or to be so addicted upon first use that you have very little chance of recovery. There is no safe dose for that. If you look at this slide, you'll see the drugs from the earlier years, and you'll see the overdose deaths, and then you see the poisonings start to skyrocket with fentanyl, the line that's shooting up. And if that was current now, you would see that line all the way to the top. Can you go to the next slide, please? That's a little bit of information. That slide, something's gone wrong with that slide. But fentanyl deaths among toddlers between the ages of 1 and 4 have more than tripled. Deaths among children between the ages of 5 and 14 have quadrupled. Our teen deaths have gone up 77% due to fentanyl. And we're losing seniors even at a rate like we've never seen before. You can't see this drug, you can't smell it, you can't taste it. We're out of time right now. If you could go to the next slide, please. There is no more time. I lost my daughter 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I thought if we could scream this from the rooftops, if we could start telling people, there would be change. There would have to be immediate change, right? Because we're losing so many people, so many young people. Why wouldn't there be immediate change? My daughter was one of 14 people that died from the same distributor bringing these pills into our small rural community, much like this, but I live in Colorado. One of 14 people. He was aware that the pills that he was distributing were killing people. He was not a user himself. So accountability has to take place there, right? What have we become when we can take lives so easy with no accountability? We need to warn other people now. We need to educate in every way that we can. We should be in schools. As Americans, we should be informed about these drugs that are coming into our country and who's sending them here. We need to know about these narco-terrorists and the effects that they have on our country with crime and addiction and the deaths and the impacts to families. And as parents, we need to be informed how this can affect our family so easily that you could be sitting at your dinner table with your teenager and the cartel is on the other side of the table sitting with them, giving them the access to these drugs on their phone. For as cheap as 80 cents, a pill. When my daughter died, these pills were selling for $35 to $50 a piece. Now people are selling them $5 and under. You don't have to really have that much money to take one of these dangerous drugs. We should have emergency response systems in place in all towns. And I heard some of the things that you're doing here, and I think that's wonderful. But if you had, and I would ask you to ask your county leaders if you have emergency response in this area. If you had a mass overdose, if you had 3 or 4 kids that went down this weekend, what would you do? How would you reach your community? Who would you put on the front line, boots on the ground, to save lives and inform people that they call it a bad batch. Every batch is bad, so I hate that. But that there's something strong out there that took out way more people than normal. What would you do? Young people need to be educated about these dangers so they can be avoided. You need to know what an overdose looks like now. I never would have thought I needed to know what an overdose looked like. If you see somebody with the purpling in their fingers, on their lips, unresponsive, a hard time breathing, they're in an overdose situation. And there's Narcan and naloxone, all types of antidotes at these tables back here that we can show you how to use when this is over. And these kids need to know to never take anything that's not prescribed to them and that's not purchased in a legal pharmacy. And most of you probably don't know, most of the pharmacies that you see online, 90% of them are not legitimate pharmacies. So you need to know this too. If you could go to the next slide, please. And you need to know how you can help if you'd like to. Know your community. Think about all of the different ways that you can help. Many of you probably heard about the deaths in the daycare in New York City this last 2 weeks ago. Who would think that an inspector went in there and needed to look for signs of fentanyl? Why would they need to do that? No, none of us would think that. But this is putting fentanyl is in every aspect of our lives now, places we would not expect. We wouldn't expect to have national emergencies and that Red Cross would need to show up with naloxone in situations like this. You wouldn't think these inspectors needed to be trained when they're inspecting a daycare. But there's a lot of smart people out there, and we need all the ways. We need all of your help. Ask your leaders about emergency response. Know who your leaders are and the candidates that are coming up. We've got a letter out right now to the candidates that we'll be releasing. Actually, this week we're releasing. We want to know. We want to sit with them. We are families that are affected, and we have tons of information. Many of us have become experts on this subject. Take it to your church. Share it everywhere you can. One of the biggest assets that I've had with my organization is to work with people in recovery. Over a year ago, I met someone very dear to me now. He is like my own son. 20 years addicted to heroin. He's an inspirational speaker now. He's 2 years clean. He's moving people across the country to walk with us. 1 in 3 people in the United States is addicted or has been addicted to a substance. That's a lot of people, a lot more people that could be walking with us. His name is Michael Fiore, and he's much more interesting than I am. Michael, will you just...
Thank you. I just want to say you guys have a town that if you get lost driving, at least it's a good scenario, because Andrea and I travel throughout the country, and sometimes we get in these towns where there's no life, but it's beautiful buildings. So I just want to say I appreciate everyone for being here, everyone taking their time out of their day to be here and get some facts and learn some things. I want to thank everyone who's been a part of making this happen for everyone. Special thanks to Paula. Like Andrea said, I am in recovery, and on this walk with Andrea the last year, I've had the great honor and opportunity to have a lot of angel moms and dads become a mother and father to me in my recovery and root me along and push me along, and Paula is one of those, so thank you so much, Paula. Like Andrea says, I'm not going to disrespect anybody and say I know how you feel if you lost your child. Me personally, though, I did lose both my parents to AIDS from heroin use, 2 grandmothers to alcoholism, a grandfather to heroin, and an uncle to heroin, right? So I know what destruction can come from, using drugs. And, one of the things I could tell you, having the lived experience, is what we're dealing with right now is not a drug. It's just not. What we're dealing with is not even an overdose. And I'm going to give you my explanation or my definition why I consider it not an overdose, right? The definition of overdose means the excessive use of drugs. The excessive use of drugs, right? Half a pill is not an excessive use of drugs. Plus, by saying overdose, I think you're giving them wrong misconception that there's such thing as a safe dose. Because back in the day, there was quote-unquote a safe dose of heroin. There was a quote-unquote a safe dose of, cocaine and other drugs. It's not an overdose, and it is a poison, because all it takes is a little bit, right? And, being someone that lived a life for 20 years, of course, I lived a lifestyle that went along with it, and I sold drugs, right? We never cut our drugs with something stronger than the actual drug that we were selling, right? So I believe in the beginning fentanyl was laced with other drugs. Again, the definition of lace means the minority of, right? I believe it was laced to get people highly addicted, so now you have a customer to keep coming back, right? I think it's opposite now, like Andrea was saying with the filler, right? I think it's fentanyl laced with heroin. I think it's fentanyl laced with cocaine. Me being someone that actually works in treatment in California, I'm a group facilitator, alumni coordinator. I'm working very hard to change the curriculum when it comes to drug treatment. Again, reason being is because we're not dealing with drugs no more. The curriculum is outdated. The way we're approaching it, it needs to become more of one voice, right? It's not just law enforcement's problem. It's not just legislation's problem. It's everybody's problem. It's the community's problem. One of the things I focus on is my community, because my community community is what's really probably bringing the drugs into your community, where your kids that want to try recreationally, that want to do it, you know, experimentally, are getting the drugs because of the demand that we're putting on for the drug. So I'm very adamant with teaching my community and giving my community inspiration that if we're not picking up the drugs, robbing for the drugs, stealing for the drugs, or using for the drugs, the demand of the drugs goes down. Like I said, both my parents were addicts, right? My parents were great people. We are not bad people. We make bad choices, just like I think we all could identify with making a bad choice when it comes to not wanting to feel our pain, right? Everyone has a different way of maybe escaping their pain. The reason drugs are being used is not changed from when I started using it, right? The loss of identity, the people pleasing, the validation. Views, followers, and likes was out way before social media. That was the high school cafeteria for me. That was the block for me. I was always doing things for the perception of somebody else. I wanted you to like me, so I manipulated and I lied and I became whatever it was I thought you would like. Might even sound familiar in your life. We're all doing that, right? So because the reason drugs are being used hasn't changed, just the drug has now became a weapon of mass destruction, because that's what it is. It's a weapon of mass destruction. If someone could die every 5 minutes from something, it's not just a weapon of mass destruction. I believe it's a national security risk at this point. Someone's dying every 5 minutes, and because it's being labeled an overdose, it's being stigmatized like if it's an addict's problem. When it's not just an addict's problem. If anything, addicts, I don't mean to say it like this, but addicts have a better chance of living with fentanyl than your children do right now because of our tolerance. If you went into the gym and I told you to go bench press 500 pounds without a spotter, are you going to be able to get that weight off? And then if you do, it's going to fall on you, you're going to be able to get it off. No. You're going to want to come into the gym and start with 10 pounds. Drugs no more at 10 pounds. The drugs are now the 500 pounds. And these kids that are taking them are dealing with something that they can't get over with, right? And now with social media, you used to be able to live in a nice town like this, or in a gated community with the security and everything like this. It's being delivered to places that pizza don't even go to right now. And pizza gets delivered everywhere. It doesn't matter if you're in a town of 5 people or 5 million people. Like, this is everyone's problem. If it has not hit you directly or indirectly, thank God, I hope it doesn't. But if you really think about it, either you're going to be affected by it, your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, because society is now not going to get better because we're losing our future politicians. We're losing our future law enforcement, our future teachers. We're losing everything that this country's going to need to stand on, which is our youth. So how do we get the prevention? Listen, we could give statistics. When I was a kid and someone came in and talked about drugs, it went in one ear out the other. Because if I told you don't think about pink elephants right now, what are you thinking about? We have to attack the mental health part of this, right? It's a negative thought that leads to a negative thought pattern that then leads to an idea that might sound good. Because my parents were addicts, they told me how this was going to happen, what's going to happen to me, and where I'm going to go, and I still didn't listen to them. And they were my parents. So we have to find different avenues to reach the kids. And the lived experience, I could, like someone in my community could speak to your children, say the same thing you're going to say, but get through to them. Because it's our parents. Who wants to listen to our parents? We have to get a little more creative with how we're talking about this. We kind of, it's the result of a problem, right? Right now it's fentanyl, and I'm sorry to say this, I think we're gonna hope and wish it was just fentanyl coming up, because you got other drugs coming right now. Xylazine, and xylazine's not even an opiate, so, you know, like Andre was saying, we have the Narcan and the Lexon, we could that doesn't even work. So now what's our next step? If we can't strategize and come together and become one voice to fight fentanyl right now, how are we going to be able to fight the next thing that's coming? Because it's going to keep coming, and it's going to keep coming. So it's our obligation to each other to get the education and find different avenues to reach the kids, and to look beyond the stigma of what someone used to be, and maybe they're not no more. There's a lot of value my community brings to this. One, we show you that there's hope, right? HOPE, hearing other people's experiences, just like with the families impacted. You hear them lose their children, they start nonprofits, they're saving lives, their child's life lives on, the legacy lives on, because they're saving lives. That hope of seeing that will give you hope that you can move on without your child and make your child's life worth it and create a legacy through it. My community gives hope because we could show that you can overcome a fentanyl addiction. And how we do it, and the way we did it, and speak it in ways where people can understand. Because I'm very blunt with my life. I don't hide anything, because stigmas only exist because people believe they exist. For me to feel once an addict, always an addict, guess what? I'm gonna believe once an addict, always an addict. Whatever society says people are, we're believing it, so we're allowing society to dictate who we are as people and what we're supposed to mean to each other, right? Everyone wants to be independent, great. I'm more on the sense of interdependence. There's an interconnectedness between all of us, and that's through our pain. We cannot even speak the same language. If I hold my arm and I grimace, you know I'm feeling pain. Pain is the universal language. If we could come together and share our pain with each other, whatever hurt you're going through, you will find unconditional love. And I don't push my beliefs on anyone, but I'm a believer in Jesus Christ. And when in my life, when two or more gathered, Christ is present. I try to bring my beliefs into whatever it is that I'm doing. Again, I'm not pushing on anybody, but whatever God you believe in, God is love at the end of the day. If we could start finding each other through our pain, we will start loving each other. Will it make it easier? No, but I do believe we will see those that we lose. But if we do this with anger and we do this with arguing with each other and the division, and we're just not going to get our message out there, right? There's too much division even in my own community, right? If we could become one, there's many ways to fight this. And Dre and I believe hugely in prevention and awareness, getting to the kids early and giving them the education and having them educate each other, because that's where it works, right? The peers pushing each other. But if you're telling me it's an overdose, what makes me think one pill's gonna kill me? If you're just approaching this as a drug problem, I don't have a drug problem when I'm 13. It's more that we have to connect with the mental illness part of this, because that's where this is all rooted. We could just keep ripping the weeds out of the ground. If anyone here's a gardener, you know they're going to grow back, right? We have to dive into the root of the problem. The root of the problem is the communities are divided. There has to be one common goal that at least brings us all together, and that has to be the quality of life. What happened to that? What happened to the quality of life for each other, even if we don't know each other? What happened to the quality of life? Like in 3 days, we knew within COVID to wear a mask, hand sanitizer 6 feet away from each other in 3 days, 7 years. And we're still having town hall meetings, and there might be some people here that don't even, you might think it's the fentanyl in the hospital. It's not, it's illicit fentanyl. Medical compounds are being changed, analogs are being changed, it's not what's in the hospital. So people are getting the wrong information. We can't, I would love to be able to rely on media and television, but unfortunately we can't. It has to be us, word of mouth. It has to be knocking on doors. It has to be going to your schools and your PTAs. Who do you have coming in to speak about this? Do you have a fentanyl awareness class like you have a health class? Because it's a health concern at this point. Who are you letting in to speak to the kids? My community is very adamant. Once our lives are saved, we have a lot of mantras, but you got to give it to keep it, is one of the things we believe. I have to give you everything that I've been through and how I'm doing it in order for me to keep what it is I'm doing that's making my life better. So we have to give what we have to each other as much as we possibly can. So that we hold events, we have fentanyl awareness concerts, events all over the country. I'm just one of many voices in my community, but I do highly recommend, if it is a change that you're looking to make in the community, it can't just be one set of people that you're targeting with your message. It has to be everybody, but we have to find a way to reach everybody, right? So there's concerts, there's skateboarding events that we do. But what we're very adamant about is that we're not gonna stand by while life is lost every 5 minutes. Whether it's happened to me directly, indirectly, I work in treatment, so I hear it every day. It's like death is just becoming normalized, and just for me, when I'm in my life, I'm not gonna allow it to be normalized. I'm just not gonna let people get used to just people dying and disappearing, and not everyone gets their face on a banner, not everyone gets a nonprofit name. That doesn't mean that their life isn't worth it. That doesn't mean that that person did not exist. This is a real problem. So before this problem becomes your problem, help us become part of the solution. Please help us become part of the solution. Do not leave here with any questions unanswered. Do not leave here with a might or a maybe. Leave here with some definite stuff, so when you walk outside this door, whether people want to hear your voice or not, and I guess that's what helps with me being a Christian, it's I'm going to say it whether you want to hear it or not, because that's what it is for me. But whether people want to hear your message or not, you have to say it, because the one that seems less receptive to your message might be the one that needs to hear your message. Have that uncomfortable conversation with your children, because you do not want to be the parent that wishes they could have done more, right? Show that video dead on arrival to as many people as you possibly can. Ask people, what do you know about fentanyl? Like, have that conversation at a coffee shop. Until we start getting louder where they're hearing it from everywhere and it's starting to happen, change is not gonna occur. Change is only gonna occur the louder and louder we get with our message. So don't let somebody just go by without asking. If you have grandchildren, nephews, nieces, asking what they're doing. Because listen, they might be like, you know, my friend is getting it from me. Great, your friend might be getting it from you, but I sold drugs. There's a whole chain of command before you're getting that drug. A whole chain of command. There is no way for you to know how much it was stepped on before you got it. Then you have people like me that need to support their habit. We don't want to go through withdrawal, and I'm sorry to say this, I was a drug dealer. I don't care about your safety. I don't. You are not my concern. What my concern is to not be sick. And that's how deadly and detrimental it is to our mental health, that somebody could look at somebody and not care about their well-being because I need something for myself right now. You can't judge people on how they're acting. We need to be held responsible and accountable for our actions. I 100% believe that. And I tell that to people, I'm responsible for my behavior at all times. Whether there's something that came in my life that made me act a certain way, I still acted that way. So there's still accountability and responsibility factors that have to be, you know, like taken care of. But at the same time, breaking down the broken and building them back up doesn't work either. Tough love just doesn't work, right? If you're having someone that's, you know, dealing with addiction or having trouble reaching them and you've never lived a life, it's gonna be difficult for you to have empathy and compassion for why they're not getting this right because you just haven't lived that life. You know, like if I had, you know, if I needed my taxes done, I'm not gonna call my doctor to do them. I'm going to call it, you know, a tax guy to do them. If you have someone dealing with addiction or someone that needs some recovery or someone that just needs a different conversation as far as why they're doing things to hurt themselves because they hate themselves, you have to find people that lived in that darkness and in that hell and got out of it. So we're all here to help each other. So please, if there's any questions, please don't live without introducing yourself to me. If you've had a loved one that you lost, please introduce yourself to them to me. Tell me their name, tell me a little bit about them, because my fight today is because I've been given a new life and I'm tired of lives being lost. So this is not a war on drugs. This is a fight to save lives, and every single one of us has an obligation to have that fight within them. Thank you very much.
Tough act to follow right there. First of all, he hit some key points, and we may have some disagreements on other things, right? My name's Brian O'Keefe. I work with the DEA. I do community outreach for New England. Yeah, New England's a big area. From northern Maine down to southern Connecticut yesterday. The beauty is, you're right, we all have a commitment to our own communities. We have to be here 24/7 where we live on these streets. And we shop in this area, right? Our kids are educated here. I don't live in Fairhaven, although this is a beautiful place. I'd love to live here. You're responsible for your community. Waterbury, Connecticut, yesterday, we had over 100 people in one room at the Police Athletic League talking about one thing, talking about how all these nonprofits, city agencies, state agencies, politicians, from the U.S. Attorney down to the police chief. 100 people in a room talking about the same thing. What can we collectively do in our community? So I would implore you in your community to see what you can do. Talk to other nonprofits. I went around to different tables yesterday. There was 15 tables there. Everybody said, wow, I didn't know what they did. I didn't know what they did. Yet they're all in the same zip code. Well, guess what? He's correct. She's correct. DEA seized 59.6 million pills in 2022. 59.6 million pills. And out of that, 7% contain xylazine. Anybody know what xylazine is? It's a horse tranquilizer, right? It's not an opioid. It acts like one. And you're correct, Andrea. Most of these ingredients are going from China right down to Mexico. You got two cartels. The Jalisco cartel, Sinaloa cartel. And guess what? As you just stated, they don't care about the end user. They don't care if you die. Why? They're in the business to make money. You could take the cartels and put them in the Fortune 500 companies, I'll bet they'd be in the top 5%. They make money. They have HR departments. Oh yeah, they do. But their HR department isn't like the one at Walmart. When they ask you who you are, they want to know your name, your mother's name, your father's name, your siblings, your cousins. It's pretty dark why they ask that. The point is, DEA is doing what they can do every day. Years ago, when heroin was a big thing, 2015, we saw a giant, well, actually 2010, you saw a big spike in heroin. Because in 2010, Purdue Pharma changed their molecular structure to their oxycodone. I won't get into that, but reality is it made it a little more tamper-proof. People started using heroin and we saw a spike. Heroin was heroin, right? It's farmed, have to water it, agriculture, you know, plant it, seeds, everything. So if DEA made a giant seizure down in Mexico, we would end a little bit or stop the supply. Guess what? With the synthetic opioids, like fentanyl, we're having a hard time keeping up with the supply. Why is it? It's synthetic. You don't need to plant anything. You don't need to water it. It's not weather contingent. It comes from a lab, Mexico, up here. New York's our big port, New England, here we are. I grew up in Lowell, Mass. Lawrence, Mass is a very big hub in this region. Here's the issue. Out of the 59.6 million pills we seized last year, I'd like to say DEA did a phenomenal job. That's probably a small percentage. Just in El Paso, Texas, you have 4 ports of entry. You have trucking, foot traffic, and regular cars. That's just 1 port of entry in 1 city along the southern border of Mexico where most of these things are coming in. Yeah, we get some stuff coming in from Canada. That happens too. So we seized 13,000 pounds of powder last year as an agency. 13,000 pounds. Of that, 23% contains xylazine. So the fentanyl, as if it isn't deadly enough, now we're mixing in xylazine, right? Xylazine cannot be reversed by Narcan. Narcan is an opiate antagonist. It reverses the effects of the opiate and may or may not be saved by that. If you're on xylazine and you overdose, you're not getting saved. How many people in here have someone in their family that battle an addiction, a loved one? And if you're not raising your hand, that's fine. I know you do. That's okay. I've been at this for I was a police officer for 25 years. I've been doing this job for almost 3. When I started this job for DEA back in 21, 4 out of every 10 pills contained 2 milligrams, which is a tip of a pencil, and I didn't bring a slide because Paula has it on her Achieve Greatness pamphlet. 2 milligrams is what they consider a fatal dose of fentanyl. So in 2021 in March, it was 4 out of 10 pills. In December of 2022, it went up to 6 out of 10 pills. And as Andrea just stated, Ann Milgram, our administrator, now it's up to 7 out of 10 pills. So 70% of the time someone takes a fake pill, they have a chance of dying. 7 out of 10 pills. Let that sink in. So when I started this job in 2021, thinking that, okay, we lost over 107,000 lives from August 21 to August 22. It was like 107,688. The same time frame, August 22 to 23, we're up over 110,000. So last year, it averaged about 295, 296 people a day dying from drugs. Now it's up to over 301. And as Andrea stated, if you look at the amount of deaths daily in this country, an Airbus A350 holds about 300 to 350 passengers. What would happen right now if a plane crashed outside of Fairhaven? What would happen nationally? It'd be all over the news. You might even get a word from the President of the United States, right on down to your local district attorney and local politicians and federal politicians. Well, guess what? Everybody's talking about this, and I can't get into the narco-terrorism, and I do a lot of these events throughout New England. We're a drug administration, and we're an administration and not agency for one reason. We monitor drugs with legit pharmacies, right? But what we do is go after the bad guys. We have Asa Morse in the crowd and Jim O'Neill, who both work in our local DEA office. They do a phenomenal job down here. They're the boots on the ground that work collectively with the Fairhaven Police Department in New Bedford and Fall River. They're the boots on the ground that are trying to make a difference in your community. Well, guess what? We're losing 301 people a day in this country. What is DEA doing? We know that we can't arrest our way out of this problem. I knew that as a police officer for 25 years. And you're correct. Mental health and drugs are interconnected. There's an interconnectivity there. My brother's been struggling for over 3 decades. There's a mental health component of that. I can't get into talking about that because I'm working for the DEA, but I like to throw that out there because they're one and the same. Somebody's hurting for some reason, and you need the root cause of the problem. The DEA is not changing their order of operation, but the DEA is now more involved in community outreach. And the community outreach is simple. We need to partner with everyone that's here today from the nonprofit world. I'm fortunate, I'm blessed. I walked into a phenomenal job that I love. It's not a job, it's a calling. I met Phil, Paula, Lisa, Andrea. I've met dozens and dozens of great people. Unfortunately, they all have one thing in common. They've lost a loved one, specifically a child, to this horrendous, I don't even want to call it a disease, the impacts that it's causing in our communities. And one thing I know is we've gone from addicts to substance use, to substance misuse. I don't care what you call it. Kids are dying. It's no longer overdoses for a reason. Why did we change the term overdose to poisoning? Why do you think that is? Anyone know? It's pretty simple. Young kids that are going on their phones to social media and getting something delivered to their house, they're not looking to die. And adults are the same thing. They're not looking to die that day and take their last breath, which is a powerful thing to watch when you see that. We call them poisonings because most of these are accidental. Although I will tell you, and you can attest to this, work in the streets, you talk to people, if they know there's a bad batch of something going around and they know he's selling it, guess where they're going for their next hit? Bingo. They want to chase that high and get as close as possible to the first time they used. And I know it's maddening to those that don't deal with that. When I talk to kids, I love to explain the light switch. We all have an internal light switch. Brian O'Keefe can have a beer and shut the light switch off and not have another one for months or years. My brother, the minute he tried a drug, that light switch went on, it never got shut off. That thing is on 24/7. And at 52 years of age, it's still on. And I tell you that personal story because that resonates. Yeah, when I talk to kids, I don't have the drug problem that my brother has. But I can tell you the death and destruction and turmoil that it's caused in the family setting. I lost a cousin last year down in Florida, 36 years old. Had another cousin, just left her 4 kids and her husband last year. She's back on track. It doesn't care what color you are, what your sexuality is, what your preference of pronouns is, what your religion is. Guess what? When drugs hit, they hit hard. And all I can tell you is your kids are never too young to start educating about what's out there. Because 7 out of 10 pills, not 4, not 6, 7, 70%, there's a chance that that person taking that pill is not going to wake up, especially with xylazine. I'll guarantee you, now that the numbers are going up with deaths, the numbers are also going to go up with xylazine. Why? It's cheap. China doesn't care and Mexico doesn't care. They don't care about the end user. They care about profitability. And there's a lot of money to be made. So all I want to do is thank you as a community. It's very hard to get people to come after work at 5:30, especially a Thursday night, holiday weekend. I'm proud to call Paula and Phil my friends. Lisa, of course, down in Connecticut. We work closely. I'm up in New Hampshire. This is a ride. Waterbury, Connecticut's a ride. Northern Maine's a ride. But guess what? It's worth it because if people are willing to listen to what we need to do as respective communities, I'll drive anywhere. I just have to stop eating McDonald's. It's not good for you. But at the end of the day, I appreciate you being here today. I don't want to take up too much time. Lisa has a phenomenal organization. Unfortunately, she lost her son, Joe, 5 years ago, 5.5 now. I mean, but she's turned tragedy into purpose, much like Phil and Paula are doing. And that's all we can hope for. Get involved in your community, volunteer, help out. Kids are never too young to be spoken to. I thank you for your time. Thank you.